Our next guests are Bernie. Attends, les noms. Je vais m'assurer que j'ai les bons noms. Yes. Gino Mallet, Bernie Gauguin, Marie-France Clavette are going to be doing a showcase of, I think it's a program? Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Merci beaucoup. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much to the organizing committee for Portage for hosting such a great symposium. It's been an awesome 2 days, and I'm looking forward to hearing more great speakers. And thank you also very much for inviting us. We're very happy to be here and look forward to sharing the information that we have about one of our programs that we've recently transformed. So what I'm going to talk about in my section is a little bit of the preliminary work that went behind this significant transformation of our services, talk about some of the principles and guiding ideas that helped us guide our work. I'm going to talk a little bit about the New Brunswick Continuum of Addictions and Mental Health Services continuum and how we want to improve it based on a lot of the ideas that we heard about this morning. I'm also going to talk a little bit about the New Brunswick Addictions and Mental Health landscape to give the audience an idea of what type of services we have. And then I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues Marie-France and Gino, and they're going to talk in much more detail about the program itself and how they provide services to clients and in women in particular. I think we're ready for the next slide. Or do we have a clicker?
Yeah, maybe if we could have the clicker would be probably more convenient.
On the podium?
Oh, there you go.
Got it. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, so transforming a substance use and mental health program is a lot of work, as I'm sure you can imagine, and a lot of thinking and research went into it before. So in about 2016-17, we really started an enhancing addiction services project with the Department of Health in New Brunswick, really wanting to look at building a more robust and effective continuum of care. That the services were built on evidence-based practices. So we did a lot of research, and we focused reviews of the existing services. So we did sort of lengthy and exhaustive reviews of our withdrawal management facilities, of our live-in treatment services, the community services that we had for addictions and mental health, as well as what we had for addiction medicine as well. We consulted a lot of individuals across the spectrum of care, so we talked with clinicians, managers, directors, people with lived experience, clients who used our services, and various other partners as well. And we, of course, did a good review of the literature in terms of what's best practices. And what we really wanted to do was to implement services across the spectrum that would broaden the continuum of care, kind of modernize addictions and mental health services, and really focus on just improving the health outcomes for New Brunswickers. And that has now continued into our recently released 5-year Addictions and Mental Health Action Plan that really is interdepartmental in nature. We were talking this morning about having other government departments working together, and that's, I think, what we're trying to do with the 5-year Addictions and Mental Health Action Plan in New Brunswick, is having departments work more closely together. So some of the key elements of the action plan include things such as improving access, intervening earlier, focusing on population health, matching the right intensity of service to the individual's needs, and also reducing the harmful effects of drug-related impacts as well. I'm going to see if I can make this work. Yeah, okay. So all services that we reviewed and all the information that we received really told us that we need to really transform the system. And this system needs to be based on principles of effective service delivery. We heard from Dr. Poole this morning and others about some kind of guiding principles. So that was kind of one of the things that we needed to do. We needed to develop some principles that would help guide our transformative work. We needed to build an effective continuum of services as well. We had a lot of services, but they often weren't connected. They were kind of siloed, not really talking to each other. And we really also wanted to focus on continuing the work of integration of addictions and mental health services, because in the past they were kind of separated, but also integration with the rest of community agencies, other government departments, really to start working kind of more collaboratively and more closely together. We wanted to create a culture of continuous learning. We heard quite clearly from clinicians that they wanted more education, more training, more knowledge so they could be more effective in their work with clients. So that really was an emphasis as well. And we really wanted to create a foundation of evidence-informed services. And of course, improving the quality of life and health for New Brunswickers. So what we did to kind of guide this work, we identified 22 principles of effective service delivery. So we kind of scoured the literature, we talked with people, and we identified 22 guiding principles. And they fall into kind of groupings and categories. So the first one focuses on improving the client experience. We want the clients who come to our service to feel welcome, engaged, supported, all those really important things that we know, those relationship factors that really help improve outcomes. We also wanted to focus on service delivery, making it more effective, more consistent, and more evidence-based. We had some principles that focused on service integration, making a system that is sort of better connected, works more closely together, and is more collaborative in nature. And of course, we wanted to focus on workforce development to make sure that the clinicians who do provide the services have the right tools, the right technology, and the right knowledge to provide services. And of course, in New Brunswick, like many other jurisdictions, we do great work, but we're not always so good at evaluating what we do and promoting it. So we really wanted to focus as well on evaluating the services that we provide, to showcase what we do, and also to use that information to help guide improvements as we move along. So these are how we arrived at those 22 principles of effective service delivery. So there was some expert consensus and guidelines in the literature. We looked at the best practice literature as well, recommendations that were generated from the 3 major service reviews that we conducted. And we also incorporated a lot of ideas, concepts, and common themes we heard from clinicians, managers, directors, and clients as well. And there was a lot of existing practices that the clinicians and the programs engage in, but they were never really kind of formalized in a comprehensive manner. And at that point in time, we had an addiction task force, and that task force kind of guided the work and sort of endorsed these principles as well, saying that they were really helpful in moving the system forward to some of the next levels. These are just examples. We don't have time to go to over 22 principles, but just to give you an idea of kind of what they look like. The first one is the participant is the priority for all programs and services, so this falls into the client experience. I have no doubt that when a clinician and a client are working together, that client is that priority for that clinician. However, like most systems, we had a variety of rules and barriers that really made the system not necessarily client-focused. For example, one that comes quickly to mind is, for the longest time, our live-in treatment services in New Brunswick, individuals had to be sort of sober for 30 days before we admitted them, which kind of made very little sense. It's a program for high-intensity needs, and we ask them to be sober before we'll accept them. So those are that's just an example of how we really needed to tweak our policies and our procedures to make them much more client-focused. We wanted clients to feel engaged and welcome no matter what door they came into, kind of that no wrong door idea that's been around for a while now, but to not give them a 1-800 number and go there or call here, to really engage them when they came to us and kind of help them navigate the system as well. And we really wanted participants to be offered a variety of services along a continuum of care that range from low-intensity services all the way up to high-intensity live-in treatment services as well. So as I said, we have 22 of these types of principles, and they really largely guided the transformative work. And of course, they do include things such as gender and culturally informed services. And in fact, Nancy, Dr. Poole came to New Brunswick and provided some great information to us and some training when we were just embarking on that transformation as well. So part of that work also led us to our 5-year interdepartmental addictions and mental and action plan. So what we wanted to do here is to, as I mentioned, create that continuum of services that is evidence-based, but is also easy to navigate. Two of the biggest criticisms that our services have received, primarily from clients and from partners, is that it's difficult to access and it's difficult to navigate or understand. So as a cornerstone of the 5-year action plan that we have, we want to implement a step care model of continuum of care. This is based largely on the work by Dr. Peter Cornish, who was in Newfoundland at the time, a step care model where a client can step in or step out of services, or also step in, step up, or step down, depending on his or her needs at the time. So we really want a variety of options and a system that is connected and does not work in silos. So part of this work involves, of course, developing pathways and ways of working together. So this is probably like a 5-year transformation plan that'll be some of the next steps. We haven't fully started this transformation yet. We're just at the beginning stages. We're starting to promote a model like this. And one of the key components of a step care model is the whole idea and the importance of co-designing. So this is just our kind of first draft idea to start the conversation. So we really hope to develop a made in New Brunswick step care model that will involve the kind of more formal systems that's delivered by Horizon and Vitalité, but also community partners such as the wonderful work that Sophia Recovery House does in St. John, and other important partners like CMHA, great agencies who do fabulous work in New Brunswick, so that we can all kind of work more together more collaboratively. So I won't go too much into detail about that, but we really want to emphasize that there will be different intensities. And the live-in concurrent disorder treatment service that we're talking about today, that would be at the highest intensity level. So that would be at that intensity level number 6, so really high intensity. But of course, in the lower intensity as well, we really want to incorporate more easily accessible service. So all those services that are online, like other places, the pandemic has really forced us to really develop an online presence. In New Brunswick, we have Bridge the Gap, which is an online website that is a directory of services, but it also has various online tools and information that a person can go to and kind of work their way through it and hopefully get some of the information that they need, and also direct them to services as well. Over the last year, we implemented one-at-a-time therapy across New Brunswick in adult services, and it's now starting in child and youth services. So that's a very good example of a brief service where a person can come in and talk to somebody right away. No lengthy intake process, just come in and they can talk to somebody and get the help that they need, and that can turn into a navigation system. It can turn into a one-at-a-time session, or it can turn into a more detailed assessment to help navigate the person to the treatment service that they need. So really interesting work going on in that aspect to just increase access and provide help immediately to individuals. So I won't spend too much more time on that because I know we're a bit tight for time. In New Brunswick, the Addictions and Mental Health Service, there are 4 kind of key groupings of partners. There is the Department of Health, which focuses more on kind of planning, funding, and monitoring services. There's Le Réseau de Santé et Vitalité, which is a health authority, and they serve most of the northern part of the province and the Moncton area. And although their services are bilingual, they provide most of their services in French. There's Horizon Health Network, which is most of the southern part of the province and in Moncton as well. And their language of work is English primarily, but all services are bilingual, there should be. And there's also a great variety of partner non-governmental agencies and private agencies who kind of all are in the addictions and mental health landscape as well. And Portage is an important player in that frame as well by providing their great services at Cassidy Lake Center as well. We have community addiction and mental health services, and there are offices and satellite offices, and they provide assessment and treatment. We have group and individual services as well, and this includes services for gambling, and we have a continuously evolving addiction medicine service as well, which started to focus on withdrawal management, moved on to opioid agonist replacement therapy, and now we're starting to have clinics for alcohol, and also hoping to implement more home-based withdrawal management services as well. Many of the services are combined with an addiction and mental health service in the same building as part of that integration piece as well. We have 7 withdrawal management facilities, so kind of the detox buildings, and they vary from 6 to 20 beds, and they're open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and they're generally staffed by registered nurses, licensed practical nurses. Some of them have social workers as well, and we also have attendants, and a physician goes there as well for a certain amount of hours per week to kind of guide the medical treatment as well. As with most withdrawal management, alcohol is considered one of the more dangerous substances, so they're a priority for admission just in terms of the severity and the complexity that some folks can have with heavy use of alcohol. The stay is generally 2 to 6 days, but the stay can be flexible. Pre-COVID, we were offering that service to about 2,000 distinct individuals who were coming through the withdrawal management facility doors. During COVID, that number dipped to about 1,500, but it's starting to increase again as the COVID protocols start to reduce. In terms of living treatment, we have the Campbellton service that we're going to talk about in great detail in a few seconds. There's 12 beds there, and that's the service that we transformed from a 21-day substance use only to 35 to 90-day concurrent disorder service. We also have Ridgewood Addiction Services in St. John that has 12 beds, and that is just starting to be transformed at these days here. We're looking at doing a very similar process as we did in Campbellton. There is going to be some renovations to some of the buildings there, and they're going to adopt the same type of model. We're hoping to increase some of the beds there to 16 beds. I think we'll be able to make it with a kind of the footprint of the building through the architect work. And we also have Early Recovery Center, which is also in St. John on the same Ridgewood campus. And that is for people who are in the very early stages of recovery, kind of that kind of multi-purpose transitional support service where they can go before treatment or after treatment or as they're kind of planning their transition back to the community. And as I mentioned, Portage is a key player in the addiction treatment community in New Brunswick, where they provide services to youth at Cassidy Lake, a great partner for the Department of Health and for providing great services to New Brunswick. So I'll stop there and transfer it over to my colleague Marie-France, who's going to talk about the program.
So how we got started. So we had to develop basic model and framework. So with that, we implemented an implementation committee, which involved the Department of Health, family members, clients with lived experience. We had Indigenous as well. So how do we transform our 21-day program into the program we have now? And the service really wanted to address addiction and mental health issues, so concurrent. So we program design, developed referral forms, admission criteria from best practices, based on principle, and we based it on the principles of effective delivery, like Bernie had mentioned in the beginning. We identified core programming as well for our group sessions. So one of it is cognitive behavioral therapy, steps as well, seeking safety for trauma and substance use as well, and looked at trauma, gender, and culturally informed care. We also, because the renovations, so we had renovations done for added resources that were put in the program, and also the space for other like sensory room and things like that, and the hiring of other professionals to help with the needs of the concurrent clients. And really the change management and communication. So we did have a lot of communication, a lot of talk with the team. So we're going from, substance use program 21 day to an open end program concurrent. So we did a lot of communication with our team and management as well to help kind of facilitate that. So the first site was Campbellton. So we already had our rehab program, our 12-bed program. So it was a perfect site to start kind of that pilot project in Campbellton, and the fact that we had a doctor involved as well. So we added 4 new resources to create a multidisciplinary team. So we added an occupational therapist, a psychiatrist, psychologist, an extra social worker, and a human service counselor to make our multidisciplinary team. So the program varies from 35 to 90 days. So when I call the clients for an admission, I usually say they're here for 5 weeks. Our programming is 5 weeks. After 5 weeks, we evaluate with the client if they want to stay longer, and they can stay up to 90 days. So the program is very individualized to their needs of the client. It's an open-end admission, so once there's a bed available, clients come in, and the service is concurrent enhanced. We offer up to 30 hours of group sessions a week, and also depending individual sessions depending on the level of need of the client. The service is very flexible and individualized, so our old program, the way it was made, it was kind of like the client had to fit the program. Where with this service, it's like we fit the needs of the clients. So the treatment plans that are established with the clients during their treatment is very individualized and goal-oriented based on their needs. Like, for example, if we have a client that comes in and has difficulty with staying in group sessions, well, we might develop a plan regarding that person to maybe join the sessions in the morning and in the afternoon do another activity. So we really try to individualize our treatment plans when it comes to the clients. We involve families and support as much as we can. The families are always involved in the treatment, especially when it comes to discharge planning as well. So we want the families and the communities involved in the discharge plan for our clients. We are trauma, gender, and culturally informed. This is something that we really wanted to focus on because we do have high risk, high need cases of mental health. We've had women who've come into the center, with trauma, with past trauma. So how can we make their stay as much comfortable as we can, and looking at, for example, because our center has double rooms, but probably looking at giving that person a single room if that person experienced abuse and things like that. So we really try to look at the trauma aspect and the cultural aspect, and some pictures which Gino's going to show, we do have a cultural room for Indigenous as well. And evaluating framework and fidelity scale. So like Bernie said, we wanted to really evaluate the service and see how effective, we did have these guidelines of, being flexible, having certain things. So having a fidelity scale keeps us on track of, this is the philosophy of our service, this is what we want to offer, and we're on the right track when it comes to that. So really getting into what our service is. So the service is really designed for individuals who are 19 and over who experience substance use and mental health issues, concurrent mental health issues. And it's a level of service that can't necessarily be provided in the community. So we're kind of like they say the last resorts. So they've tried other services, if it's outpatient services, mental health services, detoxes multiple times, then they would come to our center to have more of a structured program and kind of work on their issues with the psychologists and our clinical team. Concurrent and mental health addiction has a negative impact on their life and the social determinants of their life. We offer a bilingual service, so French and English. It can be challenging at times because we have to divide the groups when we do have more French people in, so it can be a little challenging, but we do offer bilingual services. The service is very goal-oriented. Like I mentioned in the beginning, each individual has their own goal in treatment and treatment plan to address their concurrent needs. We provide a daily structure, which we find, and we hear that a lot in the last couple of years with the clients, is just having that structure of getting up and going to session and eating at a regular time and going to bed at a regular time as well. It gives them that structure to kind of work on themselves as well. And it's really to increase and improve their quality of life. And one thing that I feel is very important in this program is the transition into community. So after 5 weeks, so they have to stay at the center for 5 weeks. After 5 weeks, that's when they can start doing their transition in the community. So basically, they can decide to go home for a couple of days. They're still admitted with us, but go home for a couple of days and kind of test the waters, see how things go, come back to the center, and really identify, what went well, what didn't go well, and what they continue need to work on. We found it very good for people to kind of transition them back into home and kind of preparing them for real life scenarios. With COVID, it was hard because we couldn't do that part. So we found it hard because it kind of went away from the philosophy of what this program is. But right now, we were able to establish that again in I would say in the last couple of months, and we've seen the difference in clients staying longer, feeling more confident in their program. And I mentioned that, and the clients are good to kind of say, maybe today I'm not going to go home, or maybe this weekend I'm not going to go home because things happen. So they're working on their skills as they're with us and realizing, okay, well, I'm in a high-risk situation, I'm not going to put myself there. So it gives them that opportunity to build their skills. And like we mentioned, we work to try to create a safe and collaborative environment for our clients. So we establish certain things there. So this is just a typical day at our program. So they're pretty busy during the day. So that's our schedule from Monday to Friday. So we do have, like I mentioned, we have an Indigenous room, a First Nations room. So we do smudging. It's optional for the clients at 8:30. So we have our occupational therapist does that with the client. They have a check-in in the morning, so our human service counselor does that with the client. So basically, how they're doing today, and we have kind of a scale from 1 to 10. What is their scale today, and what are their goals for the rest of the day to accomplish. Then at 10 and 1:15, we have our psychoeducational sessions. So there is more the clinicians, the social worker, and the occupational therapists that will provide these sessions for our clients. So there we had French clients in our group at that time, so that's why the schedule is bilingual. And they have there's optional exercises, so they do 10 to 15 minutes exercise, so that's optional if the clients want to do it. And at 3 o'clock, again, meditation is optional for the clients, but they tend to like the meditation, so they tend to all go. And at 3:30, that's the wrap up. So they wrap up their day, and that's when they go again with the scale and how they're feeling at the end of the day, and if they accomplish their goals. So pretty much in the evening, they have free time. And now that they can have passes, their curfew is 9:30. So working from a gender-informed approach, the way we function, and we've evolved because we've been open for a couple of years now, so we evolve our practice. But having weekly multidisciplinary meeting and treatment planning for our clients and our female clients as well, having a collaborative approach with our team members. And when we talk about our team members, not only our clinical team, which includes our doctors, our social workers, psychologists, our occupational therapists and psychiatrists, but the nursing team as well. So they're part of the care of our client. And having that collaborative approach for us really helps with the stay of the client. And every decision that is made is a team decision. It doesn't fall to one person. So, we have a team discussion about certain situations and a decision made with the team. It's not me as a coordinator, or it's really the team that will decide what's happening. Daily safety huddle. So we do meet daily just for maybe 15 minutes just to check in on how the clients are doing, if there's any concerns of that day, medication change and things like that. Individualized safety plans. So if we have, for example, maybe a problematic behavior or a situation that can put other clients at risk, we'll do individualized safety plan with the clients. And in those safety plans, we'll establish with the client strategies to help. If it's, for example, the client is triggered easily and their emotions are very reactive and intense, we'll write down in that safety plan action that they can choose and they identify with us. I'm going to use the sensory room. I'm going to go talk to staff. So that helps, with the communication as well. Like I mentioned, First Nation Cultural Family Room, trauma, gender, culturally informed care. We use a harm reduction approach as well, and I think that for us is a game changer. We've been using that language a lot more in our sessions, with individual sessions with the clients and group sessions with the client, to have that kind of harm reduction approach and for them to understand what it is, and for our team also to understand the harm reduction approach. For example, if a client is out on pass and uses while on pass, it's not an automatic discharge. We'll readmit them, and we'll continue working with them while they're in the program. Because, we all know recovery is not easy. There's bumps in the road, and it's just for us to kind of pick up and look at how we can help that person. We also use specific trauma-specific treatments. So emotion regulation, DBT, we do use some tools there to help with emotion regulation. We do have our psychologist who is trained in EMDR. So she will, if we have in a team meeting evaluate that the client would benefit from that type of treatment, she will evaluate and from there determine if the client is a good candidate, or offer other recommendation to help with the traumas as well. We do a lot of mindfulness exercises, which that falls under our OT, which she does a lot with the clients. And then I'll pass the ball to Gina.
Thank you, Marie-France. Well, I'll take just the privilege of having the microphone, just maybe a little note here to thank Portage for putting this symposium together. And also on a personal note, have a family member, a young man who actually benefited from Portage services in the past year. And it's probably the first time he has a smile on his pictures. So I gave back life to this young man. So thank you very much for all the hard work you do. Very appreciate it. So back to the transformation of our services. So the first thing I would say, any services out there that are on the journey of transforming any services, there's two important things to remember. One, obviously, as a service providers, we always have to keep an open mind to new practices or new research coming out. So we always have to improve how we do business. We just can't stay static and do the things for over and over. Research does discover new things. And the second thing, however, is that we can't throw everything we know and all the experience we've gathered out through the years. So we do have knowledge when we move forward. And the reason why I mention this is that when early on, our team, when we announced that we were transforming our program, there was a level of anxiety within our team, and it's as if that everything we thought or everything we knew over the year was just gone. So there was the high anxiety. So my suggestion is, all the hard work, everything you know, you don't throw it away. You just build on what you have. So anybody out there, this is a little token of, suggestion. So we opened in September, 24th, 2018. We started slowly, a couple of clients, just to test the waters, because it was a significant change for us, not just in terms of length, but the whole delivery service, how we were doing business. We work on a first come first serve in terms of referrals. However, we've kind of modified a little bit throughout the years on that note, because sometimes people we try to get a hold of people and they're not available, so we just go down the list quickly. And if sometimes we will take somebody who is just recently called if we can't get a hold of nobody to come to the treatment. So we're trying to be a little bit more flexible on that note. We do have referrals from all over the province. 60% are male, 40% are female. Now, on that note, I don't think there's less female that have substance use issues. It's probably maybe they have a lot more barriers in terms of accessing our services. So that's something we can talk about a little later in my slides. Our women tend to be younger, average 40 for male and 37 for female, and our length of stay, or average length of stay, is 45 days. Quick, I'm sorry for that. Some quick stats here. So when we do ask our participants or our clients, what their consumption of choice are, or what they consume, and as you can see, alcohol is still number one of our clients. We sadly hear a lot about other substances that have a harmful impact, methamphetamines and opioids, which are also on the board. But never forget that alcohol is still a major player in substance use issues for men and women. Most of our clients, or many of our clients, are polysubstance users, which is very common also. In terms of, because we are concurrent disorder, so we obviously have a high interest to understand what their mental health issues are. So some of the stats here you see in front of you, which would not be a surprise. Anxiety, 79% of our people, referred, acknowledge having anxiety issues, and depression, 63%. And then you have others like trauma, 34%, which is probably underreported. Probably people don't say that they have trauma, but actually have it. So that we have to be careful for that one, because most people probably have, especially our program, have trauma. And severe mental illness, for example, schizophrenia, 20%, and other mental health issues, 19%. So in terms of experience, so we do gather some information on how people experience their stay with us. So here are a couple of stats. Generally speaking, 98% report having excellent experience during their stay, and 95% feel safe on the unit. So specifically on that one, very high interest in terms of service delivery. Very important that clients feel safe while coming to treatment. If there's one area you want them to feel safe is in treatment. If you don't feel safe, as you know how you can open up and start your journey to recovery. So feeling safe is very important to us. 70% report improvement in problematic symptoms. 81% report being better prepared to deal with daily problems. And we measured also pre-change, which post-change of our transformation. And pre-change, we had 67% of people completing the program, which was the old program. And in the new version now, we have 80% of people completing the program. And we dare to believe that, because it's so highly individualized to everybody's own needs, that, more people are finishing their treatment. The other thing I would know before going to the other slide is that, which is very important to us, is a reputation. It's hard to measure that, but the reputation of all centers, of all treatment services, is highly important. It is for us anyway. When we do sessions with clients, and when they leave our treatment center, how they would talk about our center is very important. Would they say, well, when you go to Campbellton, it's don't go there, it's a bad place. Or on the contrary, they say, you know what, I found hope, I found my life again. And those people will go back in their communities and talk about the center, and other people maybe would want to come to Campbellton. So we really cherish that, the reputation of our center and what clients think about us. It's very important. The other thing is also important is that the indicators among staff, what we often ask is about how do we measure success? And so there's so many things out in the literature how you measure success, but one of the most important indicator, which came one from our colleagues, and I think this is one question we ask ourselves: if you're working in any facility, any services, would you refer your own children, your sister, your brother, or your spouse, if they had a substance use issues, to that service? So when it comes right to the heart, and if you say, you know what, I think I would refer to this service, this is a great service. If you refer a family member, you're probably doing pretty good as a job. If not, maybe there's some work to be done. Couple of things that their feedback of clients have said, which is very, keep me organized here. So these are the words of women that pass through our services, and I think it's important to read a couple of them. Actually, I'm going to read them all. First one, she says, the individualized treatment plan, the staff, daily access to social workers, goal setting each week, encouragement to pursue fun, healthy activities, how staff modify sessions and the energy in the group, EFT tapping and trauma sessions. The other one said, I'm recommending this program to all my closest girls who are lost down the same road I was. It's you guys who brought me out of my shell and helped me guide on the right path. I couldn't have done it without everyone here. The other one said, the sessions with the psychologist and psychiatrist, changes in my medication, and meetings with social worker. We go on with this other comment. Each person had their own program, and the outside resources were very beneficial. Example, EMDR and sleep clinic. And the last comment, which is important to know, is the entire staff work as a team, each having their individual strengths. So challenges for a woman that we've noticed, and I'm not going to go through all of that list, but there's a couple here I would like to mention, and we've mentioned a while ago, you know, Dr. Poole had mentioned some of this here, and we've mentioned the presenters. Post-treatment housing and post-treatment, I mean, a major issue. Although our clinician and our team work a lot on the treatment and counseling, we have a lot of time invested in case management and helping our clients find, you know, some resources, you know, that they feel safe going back to. And a lot of the times that's not the case. So that is a big struggle for our women. Access to childcare. It's not rare for Marie-France, when Marie-France calls clients or female clients that come into the program, their first question is, well, who's going to keep my children? So I'll get back to you. I'm going to have to find someone to keep my children. So that's a major barrier that our women have in front of them. The other one is stigma. You know, we hear a lot about stigma. This one here is very particular. What I would mention, which I was kind of a little tidbit of information that CCSA had come out in their campaign of, you know, Stigma Stops With Me. They had mentioned one of their documents that the World Health Organization has stipulated that people with substance use disorders are probably the population the most stigmatized in the world. So imagine being a woman with substance use issues and being Indigenous on top of that. So you're talking about major stigma of our people coming to our doors. And the way we deal with that with women, we always ask them, we have a lot of things to do on the outside with our partners and society, but how you talk about your own inner voice, how you talk about yourself, for example, when you relapse. So we ask people, start, you know, the stigma and start with, you know, how your inner voice talk to yourself. Instead of saying, you know, good, you're an addict, you know, you're somebody with a substance use issue and you're a good person, you just have relapse and you have a health condition like any other person. So that's very important for a woman to understand that. Less women are referred than men, mentioned that a while ago. 38% of women and 60% are men. Then again, it's not because there's less women, probably more barriers. So our successes, again, I will not go through the whole list, but a couple to mention. Increased teamwork, very essential, how the team works together. There's days our services was us and them, different professions were competing against each other, was nurses against social workers and vice versa. This is not my job, this is your job. I dare to believe that we've gone a long ways from that, and now we have a tight-knit, respectful team that everybody has a say. Even have a peer support worker sometimes around the table, or people with lived experience, and everybody has an equal input into the team, and obviously the client also. Our First Nation, Indigenous involvement has been key for us. I'll show you some pictures after. This was not only a nice add-on, was a necessity, as we can see now, and how it's used and how it's integrated into our services. And the last thing I would mention is also the case-by-case individualized approach has been key for us also, versus everybody fitting in the same cookie-cutter program. So key factors to consider. A couple here I would mention. Change management. I mentioned that earlier when I started speaking about the necessity of going as a team, but also not forgetting what we've learned. The individualized approach, which I just mentioned, very flexible, which is also a key factor to consider for anybody going on this journey. The other one, which we cannot miss, is the client feedback. I'm always surprised how important it is to involve people with lived experience, family members, and clients into the quality improvement of our program. Get them involved, ask them what they think. One little example here is that for some of you may know that we're having a new facility in the year 2023, and one of the questions we ask our clients is, did you want TVs in your room? So we had, some money for that, and one of the clients says, no, we don't want TVs in our room. We don't want to be isolated. So very important to, when you do changes in your system, to involve clients in all aspects of delivery. And Marie-France touched on this about the trauma-informed care, which is very important into our services. So finish off before what we need to improve our services, a couple of pictures. So here, the first picture, quickly, you have, maybe just to show the door again, I'll just mention this. Horizon Health and Vitalité were in collaboration with all First Nations communities around the province, and as you see on the door, it is kind of a sign of reconciliation. If every community had their own artist design a kind of a wheel with both health networks, so that we are united into the First Nation in reconciliation. So the next picture, we have our First Nation room. Obviously, it's a nice picture, but it doesn't do justice as when you really physically walk in there. So this is First Nation. We do our sessions in there, smudging and do a kind of ceremonies. And this room here was done with elders and First Nation communities. Nice, beautiful painting on the wall, as you can see. A very highly utilized room in our center, very inclusive. Before we go to the next picture, what I would mention for First Nations and Indigenous is that, obviously, if you are Indigenous or First Nation and you come into it, you feel included, you feel that, you're back to your roots, but also all cultures benefit from this. And we benefit from, all the learnings and the teachings of First Nations, and such a sign of a reconciliation, and so much now that we need this in our journey. And this is our sensory room with our occupational therapist, kind of leaded this room here, all about the emotion regulation, but a nice, the importance of, dealing with trauma, but in terms of relaxation techniques. Also, you have the waterfall, the sensory, and then the next picture, you have all some of the gadgets that you have to, the fidget toys, where people need to have the regulation when they're dealing with emotions. This room is particularly interesting for nursing staff. Nursing staff, a lot of the times when clients will go to them and say, they want a PRN or they want some medication, a lot of the nursing staff will say, well, why don't you go try your plan into the sensory room? And often than not, they'll be able to regulate their emotions within this room versus, taking medication. So that's a nice add-on for our service. Move on here, our wall of hope, message of hope. So clients are voluntarily asked to write some messages for other clients when they come in. So a beautiful wall. This here is a part of Safe Ward model. For the ones who don't know, Safe Ward model is an international model, and if I'm not mistaken, has started in Australia. So there's 10 interventions for Safe Ward models for psychiatry and substance use units. And this, what you see here, is pictures of staff that we hang into the corridor, which basically says, you know, we know each other. We get to know you. You should get to know us. So you have pictures of staff and what are their own interests, what are their hobbies, who are they? So it's a nice starter conversation when clients come in the first time and they see that. And if you see somebody say, holy geez, you like the Montreal Canadiens, you know, so they start a conversation with that. Or you like knitting, you like pottery. So it's a very nice add-on for our service. Therapy rooms. Then you got the lounge. Nice gym, pool table, and very important also for recovery. Why stop using if you don't have a healthy lifestyle or something to, you know, to wake up to? Some of the outside of our building, which clients will work in the gardens. You probably see on the building on the right, you have a garden there. It's probably early in the spring or early summer because you can't see it growing, but there's some gardens there, so clients work into. So on the last thing, a couple of things, how we need to improve as a service. Always room for improvement, even though we're pretty proud of what we've created. Never put your head down and think that you got it made. There's always room for getting better what we do. Now, for specifically for women, obviously, there's a couple of things I'd like to mention. Number one, reducing stigma. We've mentioned this throughout, even this morning, talked about that. The housing piece, very, very important, how we collaborate with our partners, and we want to, you know, a lot of women and clients, they do a lot of good work, but if you return them to situations or high-risk environments and places where they started off, they're not comfortable, you know, it beats the purpose. So we need a lot of work around that. Other things, we're having a new building, and anybody who is in construction business or they want to look at having new centers, I think one of the things that I believe and our team believes is single rooms. If there's any part of healthcare that you have single rooms, it should be people with substance use issues. We have double rooms right now, and it's not just a logistic issue, it is also, in my mind, not trauma-informed. So single room is very, very important. The other thing I would mention is you know, we're continuing developing guidelines or adopting principles that are trauma-informed and gender-specific. And one of the things, for example, we've done, we need to continue at is we need to get rid of rules. You know, a couple of pages of rules to more of a code of living, which we've transformed, and not you know, exploiting people with substance use issues by treating them differently than we would do in the other healthcare setting. So that's very important. And lastly, well, thank you very much for participating, and specifically the team that we up home that helped us out to transform this program from, you know, people with lived experience, family members, all our clinicians and the medical team, the central office with Bernie, and you know, upper management and all the team that's worked hard for helping us this year. So thank you very much.